Welcome to Lesson 8 of GMAT Math Basics. If you don't need help with math basics, please just head back in the feed 8 weeks for some more advanced topics such as how to start studying, how to handle the new data insights section, how to become more disciplined, and pretty much anything else that you might want to know. Today, let's answer an important question. How do you multiply large numbers without a calculator, under time pressure, when one mistake can cost you the entire problem? Which is the situation on the GMAT quant section. The answer is long multiplication. So you want to ask yourself, if you're using this as like a digital quiz or audio flashcard set, what are the steps to long multiplication? Do you actually remember them? If you can recall them, you might want to skip ahead in the feed. If you cannot recall them or you want to test yourself and reinforce and make sure you understand all the steps, that's what we're going to walk through right now. Step one of long multiplication is to stack your numbers. If you've been listening to any of our other lessons on things like long addition and long subtraction, you should be familiar with the stack. If you haven't, stacking just means you put one number above the other number. So when you're multiplying, you're generally multiplying at least two things together. And if you're multiplying two things together, you're going to stack one on top of the other. Now, here I recommend putting the smaller number on the bottom just for consistency's sake. But like addition, you can technically multiply in any order. And so it does not actually matter if you put the smaller number on the bottom, but that's what I'm going to do. That's the most common convention when you see these techniques explained online. So I think you'll probably get the most out of it following that convention. Having said that, it is not required. What is required, though, is when you're stacking to make sure you line up the place values of each number that you're multiplying together. That is not optional. That's critical. And if you haven't listened to previous episodes about lining up place values, it just means the units digit of one number goes directly above the units digit of the other number. The tens digit of one number goes directly above the tens digit of the other number, etc. So when you write one above the other, all those place values are lined up vertically. If you don't know what digits are, then you'll want to go back to the first lesson of GMAT Math Basics and get your basic definitions learned. Let's use an example to talk about the essentials of long multiplication, and then we will build on those essentials with a couple more advanced techniques. Let's start with 21 times 3. A lot of you can probably do 21 times 3 in your head. That's neither here nor there. It's really just an example to get us started talking about the steps of the technique. So what would you do first? Hopefully you're thinking you would stack the numbers, put the larger one on top and the smaller one on the bottom. You would have 2, 1 written on top, and directly below the 1, which is the units digit of 21, you would write 3. And then I do recommend drawing a horizontal line right below those numbers to separate what I will call the result area, or separate the result from the two things that you're multiplying together. Having said that, the line is not essential. You will typically see that line when you're looking at tutorials online. And so I like to talk about it, and I personally like to use it. I find that it's a valuable way to visually organize things, but it's not critical. So once we've got them stacked, what's step two? Step two of long multiplication is to multiply the units digits together. So in the units digit column of 21 times 3, we've got 1 from 21 and 3. So the first move there is just to multiply 3 times 1. 3 times 1 is 3. And we write the product of those two units digits at the bottom of the units digit column, below that result line I was just talking about. So this is very similar to the other long subtraction, long addition, etc. techniques that we've spoken about. 3 times 1 is 3, and so I write 3 at the very bottom of the units digit column, and in this case, 3 will wind up being the units digit of the result. More on that a little bit later. The next thing we do after multiplying the units digit is going to be a little bit different than long addition and long subtraction, because in long addition and long subtraction, you generally operate only within each column. Here, though, we are actually going to take the units digit of the bottom number, and we are first going to multiply it by the units digit of the top, which we just did, and then we're going to multiply the units digit of the bottom number by the tens digit of the top number. So we're going to take that units digit of the bottom number, and we're actually going to end up multiplying it by every digit of the top number, moving from right to left. So we're just starting with this smaller example. We'll get into some more intricate examples in a moment. So we're not just sticking within each column now, like addition and subtraction. We're actually switching between columns. So it's just a cool trick. It works really, really well, and it's part of the reason you'll want the big numbers on the top and the small numbers on the bottom, I think. Having said that, it does work in reverse. I just think that that could get confusing. So let's proceed to multiply the 2 from 21 times the 3, which we're multiplying only by a single digit number in the bottom, so that's the entire number, but it also happens to be the units digit of that number. So first we multiply the 3 by 1 from 21, and then we multiply the 3 by 2 from 21. 3 times 2 is 6, and we take that result and we write it at the bottom of the tens digit column. That's the basics of the technique. So the result of 21 times 3 would be a 3 in the units digit at the bottom of the units digit column and a 6 in the tens digit at the bottom of the tens digit column, aka the result is 63. 21 times 3 is 63. So we stack, and we multiply the units digit of the bottom number by each place value of the top number. I'm going to say that again. The basics are we stack the numbers and we multiply the units digit of the bottom number times each place value of the top number. So in the case of 21 times 3, we multiply 3 by 1, the units digit first, then we multiply 3 by 2, the units digit of the bottom number times the tens digit of the top number. Let's try another example to talk through how this would work if you have some larger numbers. The technique is going to be the same. We're just going to do a slightly larger example. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 to try to make this as easy to visualize if you're just on the audio feed. 1, 2, 3, 4 times 2. Again, many of you could probably do that in your head. This is just for example purposes to help you understand the steps of long multiplication. So we're going to first do what? First, you stack. Like I said, I put the larger number on top, 1, 2, 3, 4 on top, and then we put 2 below the units digit of 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 written across the top, and then 2 right underneath the 4. And then again, I personally like to draw a line beneath both those numbers to separate the result. What is the next step? Hopefully you're thinking, I multiply the units digits together. So we're going to take the 2 from 2 on the bottom and the 4 from 1, 2, 3, 4 on top, and we're going to multiply 2 times 4, which equals 8. Then we're going to just write the result of that at the bottom of the units digit column. So we'll write an 8 right below the 4 at the top, 2 right below that, and then below the line is going to be 8. 8 is going to be the units digit of our result here. Then we just move one place value to the left and we multiply the units digit of the bottom number times the tens digit of the top number. So in that case, we're going to multiply the 2 from 2 times the 3 from 1, 2, 3, 4 on top. 2 times 3 is 6. And so we take the result of that and we write 6 at the bottom of the tens digit column. Then we will just move to the next place value of the left and do the same thing. So we're going to take the 2 from 2 on the bottom and multiply that times the 2 from 1, 2, 3, 4. So I started multiplying 2 by 4, the units digit of 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I did 2 times 3, the tens digit of 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm doing 2 times 2, the hundreds digit of 1, 2, 3, 4. So units digit of the bottom number times every place value in the top number from right to left. 2 times 2 is 4. And so we write 4 at the bottom of the hundreds digit column. The last step is to move to the left to the thousands digit column. And we're going to multiply the 2 from 2 times the 1 from 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 times 1 is 2. So we write 2 at the bottom of the thousands digit column. And then there's no more digits to multiply by. And so we are done. We are done. And that's it for the basics. So 1, 2, 3, 4 times 2 is going to be 2468 on the bottom. 2,468. That's the result of 1, 2, 3, 4 times 2. Now you might be thinking, what if I have more digits in the bottom? Or you might be thinking, what happens when I multiply any of the digits together and I get a 2-digit number? Like so far, I've just picked examples where when I multiply the bottom times the top digit, we just get a single digit. And that's because I just wanted to start with the basics. But let's deal with those slightly more complicated situations. So let's start with what happens when you multiply the digits and you get a 2-digit result. Let's use an example. Let's say I want to do 87 times 3. If you stack and then make your first move of multiplying the units digit of 3 times the units digit of 87, 3 times 7, you'll get 21. And 21 is 2 digits. So we're not just going to drop that to the bottom and put like the 2 in the tens place and the 1 in the units place. It's not quite that simple. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to take the units digit of 21, the result of 3 times 7, and we're going to write that 1 at the bottom of the units digit column. So if I stack 8, 7 on top, and then 3 right below that, so that the 7's on top and the 3's right below that, and then I draw my line, and then I make my first move of multiplying the units digit times the units digit, which is 3 times 7. I get 21, and I take the 1 from that result and write it at the bottom of the units. Then I'm going to carry the 2 from 21 to the top of the column to the left. So I'm going to carry the 2 from 21 to the top of the tens digit column, and I'm going to write a little 2 floating right above the 8 from 87. That carrying move should be familiar from long addition if you're familiar with how long addition works. If you're not familiar with how long addition works, I would actually pause this episode and I would go back 2 episodes in the feed to learn about long addition, because long addition is actually going to play a role in long subtraction a little bit later. All right. But that's the basic move. If I get a 2-digit result from multiplying my digits, I'm going to take the units digit of that result, write it at the bottom of the column I'm working on, and then I'm going to take the tens digit of that result and write it at the top of the column to the left. That's called carrying, and that should be a familiar concept from long addition. So let's finish this out. What's the first step of multiplying 87 times 3 if you want to use long multiplication? Hopefully you're thinking you stack 87 on top, 3 right below the 7. If you want, line right below that. What's the next move? You multiply 3 times 7, the units digit of both numbers, and you get 21. You take the units digit of 21, write it at the bottom of the units digit column, and you carry the 2 from 21 to the top of the tens digit column, the column right to the left of the units digit, and you write that 2 above the 8. Now, the next move is different than long addition. However, it's the same as what we were talking about before with long multiplication. I take the 3 from 3 and I multiply it by the 8 from 87. So I'm just taking the units digit of the bottom number and multiplying it by every digit of the top number going from right to left. So I do 3 times 8. That gets me 24. And then what I do with the 2 that I carried from the previous step is I just add that to the product of 3 and 8. So it's a little more complicated than long addition, but the more you practice, the more natural this will get. So 3 times 8 is 24. Then I add the 2 from 21 that I got when I multiplied 3 by 7, and that gets me 26. Now, if there were more digits, I would drop the 6 from 26 to the bottom of the tens digit column, and then I would carry the 2 to the top of the hundreds digit column. Now, you can do that operation if you prefer and write a 0 in front of 87. That's totally acceptable. And then just do 2 plus 0 and get 2 at the bottom of the hundreds digit column. That's completely fine to do. Some people prefer the shortcut way of 3 times 8 is 24 plus 2 is 26. And then they just drop the 2 and the 6 down to the bottom of the hundreds and tens digit column, respectively. So there we would have 261. 261 would be the result. So what's 87 times 3? It's 261. So that's the basics of what you do when you multiply 2 of the digits and you get a 2-digit result. That's a little bit more advanced than the first couple examples we walked through. Let's try one more example where we're going to do that, but it's going to be a little bit just more of that. So let's try a longer example of what happens when I multiply and I get 2-digit numbers when I'm multiplying the digits, all right? So now let's do 1, 2, 3, 4 times 3. Previously, we did 1, 2, 3, 4 times 2, but that was all single-digit results. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4 times 3, and I'll show you how to leverage this carrying technique with a longer operation. So what's the first step? We stack 1, 2, 3, 4 on top, 3 written right below the 4 from 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I recommend you draw a line right beneath those numbers. What's the next step? Hopefully you're thinking we multiply the units digit of the bottom number times the units digit of the top number. And then we'll just repeat that process. We multiply the units digit of the bottom number times every digit, in the top number. So we'll start with the units digit. We'll multiply the 3 from 3 times the 4 from 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 times 4 is 12. What do I do with that result? See if you can tell yourself. We take the 2 from 12, we drop that to the bottom of the units digit column, right below the 4 and the 3. And then we take the 1 from 12, and we carry that to the top of the tens digit column, right above the 3. We write that right above the 3 from 1, 2, 3, 4. What do I do next? I multiply the 3 from 3 times the 3 from 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I add the 1 that I carried from 12 in the previous step, okay? So 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 that I carried from 12 is 10. That is a 2-digit number. So I drop the 0 from 10 to the bottom of the tens digit column. And then I carry the 1 from 10 to the top of the hundreds digit column, or to the top of the column to the left. So when you have to do that multiple times, you just do the same thing. You just keep moving to the column to the left every time. So now we've got a little 1 floating at the top of the hundreds column. And then right below that, we've got the 2 from 1, 2, 3, 4. And then right below that in the hundreds digit column, we have nothing because we're just multiplying by 3. Or you might write 0, 0, 0, 3 on the bottom if you want to. That's probably going to be a little bit redundant, but it's technically accurate and you can totally get away with it. So let's think about where we are right now. We did 3 times 4 first. That got us 12. So we have a 2 in the units digit of the result. And then we carried the 1 from that to the top of the tens digit column. We did 3 times the 3 in 1, 2, 3, 4. That got us 9. We added the 1 from 12 to get 10. We dropped the 0 from 10 to the bottom of the tens digit column, and we carried the 1 from 10 to the top of the hundreds digit column. What is the next move? Hopefully you're thinking I multiply the 3 on the bottom times the 2 from 1, 2, 3, 4 to get 6. And then I add the 1 that I carried from 10 in the previous step to get 7. That's a single digit result, so I just drop that 7 to the bottom of the hundreds digit column. And then what is the next move? Hopefully you're thinking I multiply the 3 from 3 on the bottom times the 1 from 1, 2, 3, 4. So I just move to the column to the left and multiply. 3 times 1 is just 3, single digit result. So we drop that to the bottom of the thousands digit column. And that's the entire operation. There's no more digits to multiply by. So what is the result of 1, 2, 3, 4 times 3? It's 3702. Not expecting you to remember this as I'm talking you through it if you're driving or at the gym or something like that. I just want you to get comfortable with the basic steps so that you can either implement them on future problems when you are in a situation where you can write all this out. And I definitely would never recommend doing this in your head. I would always recommend writing this out 100% of the time because most of us are very error prone in the quant section. We end up missing a lot of questions we know how to do, and that probably goes without saying is a massive score killer, but it's just so critically important for so many people that it bears repeating many, 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 many times. And if you've been listening to any of our content for some time, you've probably heard me say that quite a bit, hopefully. So what's 1, 2, 3, 4 times 3? It's 3702. And again, I just want you to take away the steps from the operation. And maybe you'll end up watching some videos on this or using some AIs to help you relearn this in the future. But hopefully the basics will be familiar at the very least from listening here or watching here. So That's what happens when you get two-digit numbers when you're multiplying each place value, and that happens multiple times as you go through the problem. That's what I wanted you to take away from that example. Now, there's really just one more thing to discuss when it comes to long multiplication. The above examples were all about multiplying by single-digit numbers on the bottom. So the last thing for us to cover is what happens when the bottom number has multiple digits, such as 1, 2, 3, 4 times 13, or times 113, or times 1,113. What happens when I have multiple digits in both numbers? Well, most of the basics, actually all the basics, stay the same. We're going to apply everything that we just talked through. But there's just a couple extra moves that you'll want to be familiar with. So let's dive in and let's do 1, 2, 3, 4 times 5, 6. And just try to make this as easy to visualize as possible if you're on audio. So we're just doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're multiplying 1, 2, 3, 4 as the number 1,234 times 56. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hopefully that makes that a little easier to visualize. So what is our first step? First, we stack 1, 2, 3, 4 on top, and then 5, 6 written below the 3, 4 from 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, you want to make sure that your digit columns line up. I also recommend drawing a horizontal line underneath both those numbers. Once I have stacked the numbers, what is my next step? I multiply the units digit of the bottom number times the units digit of the top number, and then I multiply the units digit of the bottom number times the tens digit of the top number, and then the units digit of the bottom number times the hundreds digit of the top number. So it's going to be, for the first part of this, it's going to be very, very familiar to what we just did. So let's just run through this part. This is going to be kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4 times 6, and we're just going to ignore the 5 from 56 for a moment. So the first move is multiply the units digits together. That's 6 times 4, which yields 24. Take the 4 from 24, drop it to the bottom of the units digit column. Then carry the 2 from 24 to the top of the tens digit column. That should be a familiar move from what we just discussed. Then we multiply the units digit of the bottom number times the tens digit of the top number. So that would be the 6 from 56 times the 3 from 1, 2, 3, 4. So we do 6 times 3, which gives us 18. And then we add the 2 that we carried from the previous step that we wrote floating above the tens digit column. So the 6 from 56 times the 3 from 1, 2, 3, 4 yields 18. And then we add the 2 that we carried from the previous step to get 20. We take the 0 from 20 and we drop that to the bottom of the tens digit column. And then we carry the 2 from 20 to the top of the column to the left, which is the hundreds digit column. So we're going to write a 2 right above the 2 from 1, 2, 3, 4. So all this hopefully should be sounding very familiar. You're like, yeah, this is what we just did, except with 6 instead of 3. And if you're thinking that, that's great. Then we multiply the 6 from 56 times the 2 from 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, we're just taking the units digit of the bottom number, multiplying by every place value in the top number. 6 times 2 is 12. And then we add the 2 that we carried from 20 in the previous step. So 6 times 2 is 12, plus the 2 from 20 that we carried, that's 14. So we drop the 4 from 14 to the bottom of the hundreds digit column. And then we carry the 1 from 14 to the top of the thousands digit column. Then, as you might suspect, we multiply the 6 from 56 times the 1 from 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, just moving to the column to the left. 6 times 1 is 6, plus the 1 we carried from 14 in the previous step. And that yields 7. That's a single digit result. So we just write 7 at the bottom of the thousands digit column. So hopefully that's feeling or sounding very familiar. I'm just taking the units digit of 56 and multiplying it by every digit in 1, 2, 3, 4, going from right to left, and then carrying the tens digit to the top of the next column if I get a multi-digit result when I'm doing that. That's it. That's everything we've already discussed. So far, nothing here really has been new. Now we get to the new stuff. So to deal with the other digits, which in this case would be the 5 from 56, we're going to do something very similar. But first, we're actually going to write a 0 at the very bottom of the units digit column in a new row below the result we just got when we did the 6 from 56 times 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's going to happen for every digit in the bottom number. So when you do the units digit from the bottom number, the 6 from 56, and you multiply that across the top, that'll be your top row of your results. Then you'll make another row right below that where you'll retain all the digit columns, units digit, tens digit, hundreds digit, etc. And when you move to the next digit to the left in the bottom number, you'll put an additional 0 to the right of that column. I'll explain that a little bit more as we go, okay? But that's the basic premise. So let's begin. The first step of multiplying the 5 from 56 times 1, 2, 3, 4 across the top is we're going to write a 0 at the bottom of the units digit. And that's because 5 is in the tens digit column. And effectively what we're about to do is multiply 50 times 1, 2, 3, 4 on the top. You don't have to worry about that if that doesn't make a lot of sense, but if that does kind of glue a couple concepts together for you behind the scenes, then that's technically what's happening here. If you're not into that, don't worry about it. So once I've got that 0 written at the bottom of the units digit column, I'm just going to pretty much do what I did with 6, except with 5. I'm going to multiply the 5 from 56 times the 4 from 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to multiply the 5 from 56 times the 3 from 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the 5 from 56 times the 2 from 1, 2, 3, 4, et cetera, et cetera. And that process is going to be very familiar. The only adjustment I make is writing that 0 at the bottom of any columns to the right of whatever column I'm working in. So the 5 is in the tens digit column, so I get a 0 in the units digit column. If 5 was in the hundreds digit column, like it was 556, and I had already did the 6 and then the 5, and then now I'm going to the 5 from 556, the hundreds digit there, then I would write a 0 in the units digit and a 0 in the tens digit below the 2 previous rows I made in the result. If it's 5,556, then when I move to the thousands place, I write a 0 in the ones digit, I write a 0 in the tens digit, and I write a 0 in the hundreds digit in a new row at the very bottom of all the math I've done. So if you have lots of digits in the bottom number, then you're going to have lots of rows of result at the bottom. And quick spoiler, we're just going to end up using long addition to add all those rows as the last step, and that's going to get you your final result. So it's kind of a cool technique that combines some of long addition, and it's a very helpful way to break this down because we do not have access to a calculator on the quant section. So this technique really helps you, again, avoid missing questions you know how to do and not just be stuck if you need to do 5,555 times 1,234. Most of us are not going to be super great at doing that kind of thing in our head with no mistakes, under time pressure, etc. So now that you understand, hopefully, that high level, let's walk through the details of that and play it out. So after I write that 0 in the units digit column, I'm going to do 5 from 56 times 4 from 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to get 20. 5 times 4 is 20. And I'm going to write the 0 from 20 at the bottom of the tens digit column. So when I'm working in the tens digit with the bottom number, 5 from 56, that result is going to go right below that, even though I'm multiplying that by the units digit. That can be a little bit weird to get used to, but that's part of the reason you want to put the 0 to the right of it in the results column to remind you the first numerical result from your multiplication goes below that column you're working in. So I'm working in the tens column now, and I'm taking the tens digit from 56, multiplying it by the ones digit from 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the first move there for multi-digit numbers. We get 20. We write the 0 from 20 at the bottom of the tens digit column, and then I write the 2 from 20 at the top of the tens digit column. So that can get take a little bit of getting used to. I multiply the 5 from 56 times the 4 from 1, 2, 3, 4, but I still carry, even though I write the 0 at the bottom of the tens digit column, I still carry the 2 from 20 to the top of the column to the left above the topmost number, okay? So we're going to go a little bit further with this in a second, but quick tip, what I like to do with the numbers from the previous carrying from when I multiplied the 6 from 56 times all the digits from 1, 2, 3, 4, there's going to be these numbers floating up at the top that I wrote. I like to just draw a horizontal line through that, like a strike through font, to just take those numbers off the table, because it's it's a little bit cumbersome and difficult when you're taking the official GMAT to erase things. It's usually better to just cross them off. It's just a function of the way the scrap paper works. And I like to do that so that I don't end up adding those carries from the previous operations into my new carries. So it can get a little bit intense with the scratch work. So usually when you're doing long multiplication with big numbers, you're going to want lots of space below for all your result rows and lots of space above for all your carry rows. So that's what I recommend. All right. So where are we now? We've got the 5 from 56. We multiplied by the 4 from 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 20. We put the 0 at the bottom of the tens digit column. And then we carried the 2 from 20 to the top of the tens digit column, which is floating right above the 3. Well, I guess a little bit above, right above the 3, because we had previous carries from the previous step, multiplying 6 by everything. So at the very top of the tens digit column floating up there, you write your 2 from 20. And then we just move to the digit to the left and multiply again. So we're going to do the 5 from 56 times the 3 from 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 15. And then we are going to add the 2 from 20 that we carried from the previous step to get us 17. And then we write the 7 from 17 at the bottom of the hundreds digit column. And then we carry the 1 from 17 to the top, very top of the hundreds digit column. So again, we're just moving to the left column to the left each time when we're multiplying. And then the results are shifted 1 to the left. And that's something you'll just get used to over time as you do this more and more. Then we just repeat that. So we take the 5 from 56, we multiply that times the 2 from 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 times 2 is 10. And then we add the 1 from 17 that we carried from the previous step to get 11. We write the 1 from 11's units digit at the bottom of the thousands digit column, and then we carry the 1 from the 11's tens digit to the top of the thousands digit column. And I know that this might be getting a little crazy on the audio feed, even if it's not already. And I apologize for that. I'm doing my best to make this as clear as possible. In fact, this is the second time that I have both re-edited, replanned this lesson, and refilmed it because we had some tech issues and the lesson was not entirely clear. It wasn't up to my personal standards and our TGS standards internally. And so this is the second time I'm going through this lesson, and I am very hopeful that this one will be much better and that it will pass the internal test, but we'll see. We'll see. If not, then the third time hopefully will be the charm. So you might be getting lost in some of the numbers. If you are, just think about the concepts. I'm taking each digit of the bottom number, and I'm basically one digit at a time, multiplying that times every digit in the top number in a particular sequence with a couple little tricks of the trade to make sure I wind up with the end result that I want. The first trick is carrying, and the second trick is writing zeros in the digits to the right for each place value of the bottom number that I am multiplying by. All right, so at this point, we've got one more multiplication step to make. So we're going to continue to the left, and we're going to multiply the 5 from 5, 6 times the 1 from 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 times 1 is just 5, and then we add the 1 from the 11 that we just carried to the top of the thousands digit column to get 6. 6 is just one digit. There's nothing to carry, so we write 6 at the bottom of the 10,000s digit column. And at that point, we are done multiplying. I'm just going to reiterate this. This step of making multiple rows at below the result line is what will happen when you're taking each digit of the bottom number and multiplying that times each digit of the top number. Just to rehash that, we took the 6 from 5, 6, multiplied it by every digit 4, 3, 2, 1 across the top. Then we took the 5 from 5, 6, multiplied it by every digit 4, 3, 2, 1 across the top. Again, with just a couple little tricks added on to make sure we get the right result. Now, we're not entirely finished with the operation, though, because we've got 2 rows in the results area. In more complicated situations, you might have 3, 4, 5, 6 rows in the results area if you're multiplying really big numbers. So I'm just going to give you the principle here, and then that principle extends to all other larger numbers. Like by the time we're done with this last step, you'll know all the steps, and you can just scale those up if you have bigger numbers. So again, I've mentioned this before, But let's dive into the details. The last step is to add up all the rows in the results column. And to do that, we just use our old friend, long addition. So in this case, the top row of the result, and I'm not expecting any of you to remember this, is 7404. That's basically 6 times 1, 2, 3, 4. And then right below that is 61700, which is all the results from multiplying the 5 from 56 times each digit in 1, 2, 3, 4, and adding the digit to the right. So going back to my previous note, if it was just 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, our result would be 6170. But because technically we're doing the 50 from 56 times 1, 2, 3, 4, we add that 0 at the end to make it 61700. So 61,700 would be 50 times 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, if that's confusing or you don't like that, don't worry about that. It's just a little bit of the inside workings of the technique. So now we've got 7404 as the top row of the results column, and then we've got 61700 stacked right below that with all the place values stacked on top of each other. So now it is truly just a long addition problem. So with long addition, we just add all the digits in the units columns. So that's 4 on top plus 0 right below that. That's 4 in the result of the long addition. And I personally like to draw a additional horizontal line right below the results I got from the multiplication to signal to my brain and visual system that I am now transitioning to long addition and getting another result. And I've found that helps me be less error prone, but again, that is optional. Now we just add the tens digit column. That's 0 plus 0, and that's obviously 0 at the bottom of the tens digit column of the result. Then we move to the left, we do 4 plus 7. That's 11. So we write the 1 from the units digit at the bottom of the hundreds digit column. Then we carry the 1 to the top of the thousands digit column to the left. That means we have 1 at the very top times plus the 7 right below that, plus the 1 right below that, which is 9. Again, don't worry about the specific numbers, just worry about the order of operations that we're going through here. And then we move to the column to the left, and we just do our long addition of basically 0 at the top of the 10,000s digit column, because there's no digit in 7404 in the 10,000s digit, plus the 6 from 61700, which is right below that, and that gives us 6. And that gives us our complete final result, which is 69104, or 69,104, which is the result of 1, 2, 3, 4 times 5, 6. So hopefully that wasn't too much too fast with all the numbers. And if it was, hopefully you got the basics of the technique, which I will now recap for the sake of clarity and hopefully driving the lesson home. So what is the first step of long multiplication? See if you can remember. First step is to stack. Make sure every digit is lined up. What's the next step of long multiplication, assuming you've drawn your line under the stack? First, I stack the numbers. What do I do next? Hopefully you're thinking I multiply every digit from the bottom number times every digit in the top number, starting with the units digit of both numbers and then moving from right to left. That's the basic workflow. So I take the units digit of the bottom number, multiply by every digit in the top number from right to left. Then I take the tens digit of the bottom number, multiply by every digit of the top number from right to left. Then if needed, I take the hundreds digit of the bottom number and I do the exact same thing. Now, if I get a 2-digit result from multiplying, what do I do? Hopefully you're thinking I carry the ones digit. Sorry, I drop the ones digit from that result to the bottom of the column I'm working in, and I carry the tens digit of that number to the top of the column to the left. Okay, so if I multiply any 2 digits together and I get a 2-digit result, I just carry the tens digit from that result to the top of the column to the left, and I drop the units digit to the bottom of that column. If you have multiple digits in the bottom number that you're multiplying what do you do? You make a new row below the result from the previous multiplication you were doing. And then each time you make a new row, you put a 0 to the right of the column you're operating in. So if it's the tens digit column of the bottom number, you put a 0 to the right. If it's the hundreds digit column of the bottom number, you put 2 zeros to the right. If it's the thousands digit, you put 3 zeros to the right. So each time you make a new row in the results area, you put another 0 to the right of that result. And then you multiply that times the units digit of the top number. And then the result of that goes at the bottom of the column you're working in with whatever zeros you wrote to the right of it. That's it. That's the whole technique of long multiplication. If you follow those steps and you practice a bit, you should be fantastic at long multiplication by test day, as long as you are not being super lazy and careless and suffering from major anxiety because you're pushing yourself to go too fast, et cetera. And if you are struggling with that, we have episodes on literally every single one of those things that I just mentioned. So every one of those problems is addressed with an episode earlier in the feed. So if you're struggling with any or all of that, please listen to those. They're completely free. And we have done our best to not hold back in those and give you the full beans that you need to solve all those issues. Next time, we will discuss long division, assuming that I can get my lesson to pass everybody else's test internally. And I'm so grateful that everyone was hard on me and that we're bringing our best for all of you today. I'm looking forward to it. As always, in the meantime, my greatest hope is that this material will make your studies as easy and as painless as they can possibly be. If you want more tips and strategies for optimizing your performance on the GMAT, please head to our website, thegmatstrategy.com, which is linked in the description of this content, and check out our free video presentation on how to reach your dream GMAT score in half the normal time, 40 minutes. That could save you months of study time. In the meantime, this is a weekly show, so please subscribe. And as always, stay positive and stay consistent with your studies. I'll talk to you all soon.